I was 34 years old when my father opened the front door and pushed my 9-year-old daughter out into the middle of a thunderstorm. Not in a things got heated and words were said kind of way. I mean, he literally walked to that front door, pulled it open, and put my child out in the pouring rain. Like she was a stray dog that had knocked over the trash can. Like she was a problem he was finally done dealing with. 3 hours. That is how long my little girl Zoe sat curled up inside a concrete storm drain 4 blocks from my parents' house before a cop's flashlight caught the reflector strip on her backpack. 3 hours of cold March rain smacking her face. 3 hours of wind cutting right through her thin cotton pajamas. Her bare feet on wet concrete. Thunder shaking the ground underneath her. She was 9 years old. She weighed 61 pounds. And not one single adult in that house went out looking for her. But here's the part they didn't know. I was already 12 minutes down the road. And 2 days earlier, I had already made the phone call that was about to flip their entire world upside down. Welcome to Silent Revenge. This is where real people tell the stories that nearly broke them, and what happened when they chose to fight back the right way. If this one hits close to home, drop a comment and stay with me to the end. This story goes deep. But real quick before we get into it, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city and the time it is right now down in the comments. Could be 2 in the morning where you are, or you might be eating lunch on your couch. I genuinely read every comment on this channel. Let me know you're out there. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss where this goes. Let's get into it. Part 1, the only door he couldn't shut. I joined the Navy at 19, and let me be real about why. My dad, Frank Callum, was the kind of man who had a very clear picture of what his daughters were supposed to look like. Stay close to home. Marry someone local. Keep the peace. Don't make noise about the things he'd rather not deal with. My older sister Sandra got with that program early. She married Mark Pruitt straight out of community college, had their son Connor at 23, and bought a house 14 minutes from my parents' place in Garner, North Carolina. My dad practically glowed at her wedding. He stood there like he'd personally won something. I never fit that picture. Honestly, I stopped trying to. I signed up for the Navy's delayed entry program before I even finished high school. Basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Then Navy A School for logistics and supply chain work. By 23, I was a logistics specialist second class. By 25, I was at Naval Station Norfolk, Virginia, running supply operations for a ship rotation. And at 26, I was pregnant and by myself. His name was Jason, a freelance architect I met at a restaurant near the base one Friday night. He was charming, funny, the kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room, right up until the moment he decided he was done. When I was 5 months pregnant, I came home to an empty apartment and a sticky note on the kitchen counter. I can't do this. I'm sorry. That note lived on my nightstand for 2 weeks. Then I threw it in the trash and got to work. I named her Zoe. I raised her in base housing on a military salary and sheer stubbornness. Person who saved me more times than I can count was my friend Keisha, Petty Officer Second Class Keisha Drummond, Supply Department, smart as anyone I've ever met and loyal like you read about. She covered my babysitting when I had night shifts. She showed up at my door with Chinese food when Zoe had a bad ear infection and I hadn't slept in 2 days. And when I got my deployment orders and I mentioned calling my parents about taking Zoe, Keisha grabbed my arm and looked me dead in the eye. Maya, do not send her to your father's house. I know you're thinking about it. Trust what your gut is already telling you. I didn't listen. And I have thought about that moment almost every day since. Part 2, the paper I signed that I shouldn't have. When you're a military parent and you get deployment orders, there's a form called a family care plan. Standard Department of Defense paperwork. You pick someone to take care of your child while you're gone. You sign over temporary guardianship. You basically fold up your most important job in the world and hand it to somebody else. Then you get on a plane and pray you made the right call. I got orders for a 9-month deployment to Bahrain. I had 72 hours to lock in Zoe's care plan. Keisha's husband had just been relocated to Japan. My other close friend at the base, a woman named Priya, had just had a baby 3 weeks earlier. The numbers weren't working. My mother called the morning I told her about the deployment. "Maya, she is our granddaughter," Diane said. "Bring her here." Don't think twice about it. On paper it made sense. Zoe would be in a real house with a yard and a good school nearby. My parents had raised 2 kids before. Zoe knew them. She was comfortable around them. The other option was chaos, and I was running out of time. What I keep forgetting to account for, what I kept telling myself didn't matter, was that my parents had already shown me for 20 years exactly who they were. I just kept hoping they'd changed. I signed the family care plan and listed Frank and Diane Callum as Zoe's temporary legal guardians. I also set up an automatic bank transfer, $1,300 a month going directly into their checking account. School supplies, groceries, clothes, doctor visits, whatever Zoe needed. My father never once mentioned that money. Not a thank you. Not a text. I found out much later that he never even told Sandra it existed. Connor, Sandra's son, basically already lived at my parents' house. He had a real bedroom there. Baseball posters. A ceiling fan with little rockets on the blades. A whole drawer stuffed with his extra clothes. When Zoe showed up with her rolling suitcase, my mother put her in what they called the guest room. A pull-out couch with a thin mattress. No curtains on the window. A lamp with a shade that had gone yellow with age. I didn't know any of that when I left. Zoe never told me. When I called my mother that first week and asked if Zoe was settled and okay, she said, "She's doing just beautifully, Maya. You focus on your job. We've got her." That was the first lie. The list grew from there. Part 3, the calls that said everything without words. The night before I flew out, I sat on Zoe's bed in our Norfolk apartment and put something in her hand. Her military-dependent ID card. Laminated. Her school photo on the front. My name printed below it and a phone number on the back. "What's this?" she asked. "That card tells anyone who finds you that you belong to me. Doesn't matter how far away I am. You hand that to anyone, a teacher, a police officer, anybody, and they will call your mom." She turned it over a few times. Her nails were purple because we'd painted them together the night before. "Even if you're in another country? Even then?" She got quiet. Then she said the thing that I have turned over in my head probably 1,000 times since that night. "What if Grandpa gets mad again?" I stopped packing. "What do you mean again?" She picked at the edge of her pillowcase. "He just gets loud sometimes. Like when Connor breaks something and Grandpa decides I did it. But Grandma always says it's nothing." I got down on my knees right in front of her. "Has Grandpa scared you before, Zoe? Like actually scared you?" She did the shrug. Shoulders up near her ears. Eyes going to the side. That move 9-year-olds do when the answer is yes, but they don't know how to say it yet. "He's just strict," she said. "It's fine, Mom." I told myself she was right. Strict wasn't dangerous. I'd watch more carefully from overseas. I'd ask my mom about it. Frank Callum was loud and hard, but he wouldn't actually hurt a child. I was wrong about that last part. If you've ever had that gut feeling telling you something was off, and you pushed it down anyway, drop a fire in the comments right now. 'Cause that moment on Zoe's bed was mine. I felt it and I talked myself right out of it. We're just getting started here. Keep watching. Part 4, 9 hours and 14 hours apart. Bahrain is 9 hours ahead of North Carolina. My workdays ran 12 to 14 hours managing supply operations for a Navy detachment. I set up my video calls for 9 at night my time, noon back home, Zoe's lunch break at school. Except my mother kept steering every call into the kitchen. "Better Wi-Fi," she always said. But Diane was in every frame, hovering just behind Zoe, filling in her answers before Zoe could open her mouth. Here's the thing about Zoe. That kid could talk. At 7 years old, she'd give you a 15-minute breakdown of every cloud shape she spotted on the walk home from school. She had opinions on everything: which gas station had better snacks, why Cardinals were obviously the best bird, what the cafeteria got wrong about mac and cheese. That was my kid. Now I was getting single words. How's school, baby? Fine. Making any friends? Some. You and Connor getting along okay? Pause that went on just a beat too long. Yeah. I tried talking to my mother directly. Mom, is something going on with Zoe? She seems real different. Diane waved me off. Kids always do this when the routine changes. Give her a few more weeks. She's fine. Can I talk to her alone next time? No one else in the room. The Wi-Fi is way better in the kitchen, Maya. You know how it drops in the other rooms. I let it go. I should not have let it go. 2 weeks later, I noticed Zoe had stopped saying Connor's name. Used to be a regular thing. Connor taught her some new card trick. Connor found a lizard in the backyard. Now when I'd ask about him, she'd look somewhere off screen and say, "Yeah, we're good," and then ask if she could go because lunch was ending. Then the care package arrived. Brown cardboard box. My mother's handwriting on the label. Inside, a bag of cheddar crackers, Zoe's absolute favorite, a school picture, and a piece of folded construction paper. I opened the drawing on my bunk. Left side of the page, 5 stick figures packed in together. Tall man. Woman with curly hair. A bigger girl holding hands with a boy. All of them touching, connected, drawn in the kind of bright crayon colors that feel warm even on paper. Red, orange, yellow. Right side of the page, one figure. Small. Brown pigtails. Standing completely alone. A gap between her and everyone else wide enough to mean something. No smile. The bottom in careful letters, my family. My daughter had drawn herself outside the edges of her own family. I called home that same hour. My dad picked up. Is Zoe there? Upstairs. What do you need? I got the drawing she sent in the care package. She drew herself off to the side, Dad. Alone. Not even touching anyone else. A grunt. Kids draw nonsense. You're reading way too much into it. She drew everyone else holding hands. She drew herself off by herself with a gap between her and the group. She is fine. Your mother takes good care of her. Maybe if you'd made different choices and were here yourself instead of out there playing soldier, your kid wouldn't be drawing sad pictures. He hung up. I pulled out my green notebook, the one with the hard cover and the elastic band that I'd been carrying since training, and I wrote down the date. I wrote his exact words. I wrote down everything the drawing showed. Then I folded that drawing carefully and slipped it into the chest pocket of my uniform. Stayed there for 4 months. Right against my heart. Part 5, Building a Case from the Other Side of the World. I started checking things I'd been letting slide. Zoe's school, Cedarwood Elementary in Garner, had an online parent portal. Attendance records, pickup logs, teacher notes. I started checking it every morning before my shift. Connor Pruitt, picked up by Frank Callum, 3:10 p.m. Carpool Lane. Zoe Callum, enrolled in extended day program, pickup 5:30 p.m. Connor went home at 3:10. Zoe waited in after-school care every single day until 5:30, sometimes later. I called the school office. The woman I spoke with was kind. Said Zoe was doing fine in her classes. Quiet but sharp. Said her grandmother picked her up from extended care most evenings, sometimes closer to 6 o'clock. Connor walked into a house with a snack waiting. Zoe sat in a program for 2.5 extra hours every day. Then I saw the birthday pictures. Connor's birthday was in October. Sandra posted everything. 20 kids, a bounce house in the backyard, a cake shaped like a baseball diamond, my parents grinning behind a mountain of presents they'd paid for. The whole neighborhood could see how loved that boy was. Zoe's birthday was in January. My mother sent me a single photo. Zoe at the kitchen table. A grocery store cake with the candles still in the plastic packaging off to the side. No decorations. No friends. My mother standing behind her with a camera-ready smile and nothing else. I called that night. Mom, why was Zoe's birthday nothing like Connor's? Where were her friends? Where were the decorations? We had a lot of expenses this month, Maya. And Zoe said she didn't really want a big thing. She's 9 years old. What 9-year-old turns down a birthday party? Connor lives here full-time. Zoe is temporary. Temporary. She said it the same way she'd say the weather. Just a neutral fact about the world. But that word landed like something sharp and it did not stop cutting. I opened my laptop at 3 in the morning and typed a hardship reassignment request. 2 pages tight. Military rules allow for early return when the conditions of the family care plan have changed in a serious way. I laid out everything. The school pickup gap, the birthday gap, the drawing, the phone call, all of it. I attached the contact for the school counselor, a woman named Ms. Brewer who had been meeting weekly with Zoe since November. My commanding officer, Commander Walsh, read the whole thing the next day. Called me in, sat down across from me, and asked one question. Callum, is your daughter safe? I don't know, sir. And that's the problem I can't get past. He signed my reassignment request and sent it up the chain that afternoon. Then I called Lieutenant Commander Sophia Reyes, JAG officer at Norfolk, someone I'd served alongside before. She owed me a favor and she knew it. Reyes, I need legal advice. Off the record for now. Talk to me. My parents are Zoe's temporary guardians. I think she's being treated bad compared to my sister's kid. Could be neglect. I need to know what my options are. No hesitation. Start documenting everything tonight. Screenshots, school reports, phone logs, anything that shows you've seen a pattern building over time. If this ends up in court, you want records that go back months. Not records you started collecting right after something bad happened. Nothing bad has happened yet. Then you're ahead of where most people are when they call me. Stay there. For the next 8 weeks I built a file. Every call I made logged with the date and what was said. Every text from my mother saved and screenshotted. Every note from Ms. Brewer forwarded to my laptop into a folder I labeled family. I didn't tell my parents I was coming home early. I didn't tell Sandra. Nobody knew except Reyes and Commander Walsh. And then, 3 weeks before my reassignment went through, Connor told the lie that put my daughter in the hospital. If you're a parent listening to this, if you've ever felt the ground shift under your feet because you knew something was wrong with your child and you were too far away to fix it, I see you. Hit that like button right now if this is hitting home. Keeps this story in front of people who need to find it. Keep watching. We're not even at the worst part yet. Part 6, a year of small lies nobody stopped. I didn't learn the full story until the investigation. Came out piece by piece from Ms. Brewer's notes, from our neighbor Rosa Hernandez, from my mother's tearful statement to the CPS investigator, and from someone none of us expected, a 20-year-old college student named Linda Park who had been tutoring Connor twice a week and saw more than anyone knew. The lying had been going on since October. First it was a phone charger. Connor stepped on it and cracked it during a tantrum. When my dad came to see what the noise was, Connor pointed straight at Zoe. She said she didn't do it. My dad told her to stop making excuses and sent her to the guest room. Then the missing cookies. My mother had baked a batch of snickerdoodles for a church event. Half disappeared overnight. Connor told Diane that Zoe ate them after everyone went to bed. Turned out Connor had passed them to his friend down the street. My mother never asked Zoe one single question. She just said, "Young lady, you need to learn some self-control." The third one was the worst before the necklace. Connor told his teacher that Zoe had called him a name on the playground. They were separated for 8 school days. When the school counselor, Ms. Brewer, dug into it, she couldn't find a single kid who backed up Connor's story. But the damage was already done. Zoe ate lunch alone for 8 days in a row. Same pattern every single time. Connor talked. The adults believed. Zoe pushed back. The adults shut her down. My mother told her once, right to her face, nobody likes a child who goes around making up stories about other people. Don't be a tattletale. So Zoe stopped talking about it entirely. She drew instead. Ms. Brewer had been meeting with Zoe every Tuesday since November because one of her classroom teachers had flagged something off in her behavior. Brewer told me later that Zoe rarely spoke in those sessions. She just drew. Page after page. And Brewer let her because she understood that some kids can only say the real things when they're not using words. Then Brewer told me something that made me grab the stair railing outside the mess hall so hard my knuckles went white. Zoe told me her grandfather says she isn't a real Callum. I closed my eyes in the Bahrain heat. My dad had said almost those exact words to me the day I signed my Navy papers. Stood in the kitchen of the house I grew up in and said, "Real Callums stay with their people. You're walking away from everything that matters." I was 19 and furious and certain I was making the right choice. Now he was saying it to my 9-year-old, who had done nothing wrong, who was just trying to survive in a house that kept making her feel like she wasn't supposed to be there. "Can you email me your session notes?" I asked Brewer. "I'll have everything to you by Monday." I forwarded the voicemail to Reyes and added 3 more lines to the green notebook. Part 7, my sister says it out loud. I called Sandra the next day. Told myself it would be 2 sisters talking calmly. 2 moms who both wanted the best for the kids. I really believed that going in. Call lasted 4 minutes. "Is Zoe doing okay over there?" Her school counselor thinks she's been withdrawing. Sandra let out this long sigh. Kind you make when you want the other person to feel like they're being dramatic. "She's fine, Maya. She just needs to figure out where she fits. Connor's been there way longer. Zoe needs to work on adjusting." Figure out where she fits? She walks around that house like she's passing through, not like she actually lives there. Connor helps Dad out in the garage. Connor sets the table. Zoe goes to the guest room and draws all night. She's 9, Sandra. Connor was pulling his weight at 9 too. Connor has a real bedroom, gets picked up from school 2.5 hours before Zoe does every single day, and has parents who are both still in his life. That's not about attitude. That's a kid who's been getting the message that she doesn't belong. Silence. And then Sandra said the thing I genuinely was not ready for. "I actually told Mom and Dad they should look into adopting Zoe. You're gone all the time anyway. She needs a real setup, Maya. She needs people who are actually there." The air in the room changed. "Adopt my daughter." "Say that again," I said very quietly. "I'm saying what everybody's already thinking." I hung up without another word. Then my laptop. Started building my legal notes. My sister had suggested that my parents take legal ownership of my child. She said it out loud like she was talking about switching cable providers. Like my 9 years of raising Zoe through everything on my own while serving my country could just be handed off because I wasn't standing in the room at the right moment. I decided that night that when I came home, I was coming home ready. Not screaming. Not out of control. Ready. Paperwork in hand. The law behind me. And completely done putting the wrong people between me and my daughter. Part 8, coming home without telling anyone. 3 weeks later my reassignment came through. Commander Walsh handed me the papers and said, "Go handle it, Callum. Your daughter needs you right now more than this department does." I packed in less than an hour. Green notebook. Laptop. Charger. Zoe's drawing still in my chest pocket. Everything else was Navy property and could stay where it was. My flight left Bahrain at 5 in the morning. 14 hours later, with a layover, I landed at Norfolk International. Rented a car. Drove 4 hours down to Garner. Checked into a Hampton in 11 minutes from my parents' house. I did not call them. I did not swing by the house. I sat on the hotel bed and called Reyes. I'm back. Landed about 2 hours ago. Good. Your family care plan revocation is ready to file. I can put it in first thing Monday morning. Walk me through what happens right after you file. Your parents lose their guardian status immediately. You get Zoe back. If they fight it or refuse to hand her over, we take it to family court on an emergency order. And if something goes sideways before Monday, you call 911 first, then you call me. But Maya, listen carefully. Don't go knock on that door tonight. The second you show up angry, your dad plays the victim. Your mom cries. Sandra tells everyone you walked out on your kid for 9 months and now you're attacking the people who stepped up. Let the process run. Monday morning, this is over. She was right. I knew she was right. Don't tell them you're back, she said. Go to the school first. Sit with the counselor. Add more to your file. Then we go Monday. I drove to Cedarwood Elementary the next morning at 9:15. Parking lot smelled like wet wood chips and school bus exhaust. Ms. Brewer was already waiting for me with a thick folder on her desk, Zoe's name on the tab in blue marker. She opened it and laid 8 months of drawings out in date order. September, Zoe and Connor at a table together. Both smiling. Normal. Fine. October. The whole family grouped up, but a small gap had appeared between Zoe's figure and everyone else. Easy to miss if you weren't looking. November, her figure drawn smaller. The others taller. Nobody's hand reaching toward her. December, a large circle face with a wide-open mouth, crayon red. A tiny figure with blue dots falling from its eyes at the bottom of the page. January, right after Connor's birthday, a boy surrounded by balloons, presents, and people. Bottom right corner, a small girl with brown pigtails sitting by herself. An X drawn over her body. February, 2 figures only. One small. One taller, wearing a blue uniform with buttons on the collar. Holding hands. Wobbly letters at the bottom, what I want. She drew you in your Navy uniform, Brewer said. I couldn't say anything for a second. She stopped drawing her grandparents completely after December. Just left them out. Like they'd moved to the background of something she wasn't part of anymore. I photographed every drawing. Both sides. Dates showing. Photographed every page of Brewer's session notes. Emailed everything to Reyes from the school parking lot. Then I sat in that rental car and let myself cry. The real kind. Kind that starts somewhere deep in your chest and shakes your whole body. I gripped the steering wheel because if I let go I wasn't sure I'd be able to pull myself back together in time. 7 months away. She's adjusting beautifully. Those drawings were worth more than anything I could say out loud in a courtroom. That same afternoon I parked across the street from my parents' house and watched. Connor's bus came first at 3:10. My dad was already out at the curb. He took Connor's backpack, ruffled his hair, said something that made Connor laugh. They walked in together. Door stayed wide open behind them. 24 minutes later, a second bus rolled up. Zoe stepped off. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, both hands adjusting her backpack straps. Looking at the house like she was getting herself ready. Then she walked up the driveway. The front door was shut. My 9-year-old daughter knocked on the door of a house she'd been living in for over a year. My mother opened it. No smile. No hug. Wipe your shoes off and pick up your stuff from the hallway. Zoe walked in. Door shut behind her. Through the window I could see Connor already on the couch. Snack plate. TV remote. Feet up on the cushions. Zoe was gone upstairs inside 30 seconds. I sat in that car and breathed the way they teach you to breathe when everything in your body wants to do something you'll regret. Slow and controlled and deliberate. Then I called Rosa Hernandez. She was 72 years old, had lived next door to my parents since before I was born, taught me how to make biscuits from scratch when I was 8. She picked up on the second ring. Mrs. Hernandez. It's Maya. I'm back in town. A breath. Then, oh, Mija. Oh, thank God. I was so close to calling you. What have you been seeing over there? That little girl sits on the front porch alone every single evening while Connor runs around the yard with your father. Just sits there by herself with her knees pulled up. Sometimes she has a little sketchbook. Anything else? I hear Frank yelling through these walls, Maya. It has gotten much worse since Christmas. He doesn't talk to her like a grandchild. He talks to her like she's a burden he is stuck carrying. I wrote down every word. Date, time, as close to exact as I could get. That evening I drove past the house. Just to look, I told myself. I pulled into the driveway at 7:15. Kitchen light on. TV flickering in the front room. Then my dad's voice clear through the door. I told you to clean up after dinner. Connor doesn't have to be asked twice. Zoe's voice so small. I did clean up, Grandpa. Don't you talk back to me. Go upstairs and stay there until you can act right. A pause. Chairs creaking. Silence. My hand closed around the door handle. Every part of me wanted to get out of that car, walk up those steps, and take my daughter without a single word to anyone. But Reyes's voice was louder than my anger. The second you show up angry, he plays the victim. I let go of the handle. I backed slowly out of the driveway, drove 4 blocks, and pulled over on a side street. My hands were shaking. My jaw ached from clenching. That was the hardest thing I have ever done. Driving away from my daughter when I was right there. I called Reyes from the hotel parking lot. File the revocation first thing Monday morning. I need it on record. Done. 9 a.m. sharp. Reyes. What if something goes wrong before then? 911 first. Me second. Get some rest, Maya. 36 hours. I went to the hotel. Stared at the ceiling. Told myself 36 hours was nothing. Told myself Zoe had made it this long. Told myself nothing would go wrong. I did not have 36 hours. The storm came that night. If you are still watching this, I need you to stop scrolling right now and share this video. Put it on your page. Text it to somebody. 'Cause there is a parent somewhere watching their child go through something quiet and invisible, and this story might be exactly what they need to hear today. Now let me tell you about the night everything finally broke open. Part 9, the lie that ended everything. I learned every detail later. From Connor's recorded interview. From Rosa Hernandez. From Linda Park, the tutor nobody expected to matter. And from my mother's own confession to the CPS investigator, the kind of crying confession that happens when a person finally has to say out loud what they've been choosing not to see. My mother had a pearl necklace. 3 strands. It had belonged to her grandmother. She kept it in a small velvet box on her dresser and wore it to church, to family dinners, to the moments that were supposed to feel important. A few weeks before the storm, she'd brought it downstairs after Sunday dinner and let Connor hold it. Told him it would be his someday. Zoe had asked quietly if she could hold it too. Not right now. You might drop it. Connor smirked. Zoe put her hands under the table. The night of the storm was a Thursday in March. Around 8:30, my mother went to her dresser and opened the velvet box. Empty. She looked everywhere. Drew my father into the search. And Connor, watching the panic spread from the living room, waited about 90 seconds. Then he walked up to my dad. Grandpa. I saw Zoe put something in her backpack after school. She was being sneaky about it. I didn't want to get her in trouble, but what nobody in that room knew was that Linda Park, Connor's twice-a-week tutor, was in the kitchen packing up her things to leave when she heard all of this start. She saw what happened next. She would not stay quiet about it. And what Connor had actually done was this. After school, while Zoe was upstairs doing homework, Connor had slipped into the guest room, taken the necklace from the velvet box, dropped it into the front pocket of Zoe's backpack, zipped it shut, and gone back to the living room. He was 11 years old. He understood exactly what would happen next. My dad didn't ask a follow-up question. He walked straight to the guest room, grabbed Zoe's backpack, and unzipped it. The necklace was right there in the front pocket. He called Zoe down from upstairs. She came down in her pajamas, dark print cotton pants, long-sleeve shirt that said future marine biologist, bare feet on the wood floor. She didn't know what was coming. Outside, the storm had already turned serious. March weather in North Carolina can go bad fast. By 8:45, the rain was coming in sideways and lightning was hitting close enough that you felt it before you heard the thunder. Inside, my father held up the necklace in one hand and her backpack in the other. "You took this from your grandmother's dresser." "I didn't, Grandpa. I don't know how it got there." "I promise." He threw the backpack against the wall. 2 years of this. Your attitude. Your sneaking around. Your lies. My mother stood behind him. Eyes wet. Mouth closed. She didn't step forward. She didn't ask one question. She just held the necklace to her chest and stayed still. Sandra showed up 10 minutes later. My parents had called her. She walked in, looked at Zoe sitting on the bottom stair with her arms wrapped around her own knees and crossed her arms. "See, this is what I have been saying for months. This is what happens without real structure." Connor stood in the living room doorway picking at the skin around his thumbnail. He'd been doing that for months. A nervous habit that got worse the bigger his lies grew. My dad leaned over Zoe. "Anything you want to say for yourself?" "I didn't take it. I promise I didn't take it. Connor saw you. Your grandmother is heartbroken and you're sitting right there lying to my face." He straightened up and looked at her the way someone looks at a problem they've decided is not worth solving anymore. "I have had enough. 2 years of this. You want to act like you don't belong in this family? Fine. You don't." My mother reached for his arm. "Frank, maybe we should just..." He pulled away. "No. She needs to learn what happens when she treats this family like dirt." Sandra from behind him, "Dad's right. This has gone on way too long." My father walked to the front door and opened it. The rain came straight in. He pointed at the open door. "Get out of this house. I am done with a granddaughter who steals and lies to my face." Those words left his mouth at 8:53 on a Thursday night in March. Zoe looked at him, then past him at my mother. Diane's eyes were full, but her feet didn't move. Zoe looked at Sandra. Sandra glanced down at her phone. My daughter looked at every adult in that hallway. Not one of them looked back. She stood up. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She picked up her backpack, put her arms through the straps, and walked to the door. No shoes. No jacket. No phone. She stepped out and the rain soaked her in seconds. My father slammed the door. In the kitchen, Linda Park stood frozen with her bag on her shoulder. She had watched everything from the kitchen doorway. She walked to the front window and watched a small figure in pajamas moving down the wet sidewalk in the dark. Getting smaller. Disappearing into the rain. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Next door, Rosa Hernandez heard the slam. Looked through her kitchen window. Saw the same thing Linda saw. She called 911 before she even set down her dinner plate. Inside the house, my mother sat at the kitchen table and turned the necklace over in her hands. "Frank." Maybe we should let her back in. It's a real bad storm out there. She'll come back when she's ready to apologize. Sandra pulled on her coat. I need to get home before the roads flood. Connor, come on. Connor didn't move right away. He stood in the doorway staring at the closed front door for a long moment, his thumb bleeding where he'd been picking at it. Then he followed his mother to the garage. Nobody went to look for Zoe. Nobody checked the porch. Nobody looked out the window. My daughter walked 4 blocks in a thunderstorm in her bare feet before she found a concrete storm drain big enough to crawl into. She sat inside it with her backpack pressed over her head, knees pulled tight to her chest, cold rain in her face, thunder shaking the ground underneath her. She sat there for 3 hours. Part 10, the card with my name on it. The officer who found her was named Ramirez. Responding to the 911 call about a child alone in the storm. He drove the route 3 times. On the 3rd pass, his flashlight caught the reflector strip on a small backpack inside a concrete drainage opening 4 blocks from my parents' house. Zoe was shaking so hard she couldn't put a sentence together. Both feet were cut up from running on wet asphalt. Her lips had gone bluish. She was holding that backpack to her chest with both arms and would not let go. Officer Ramirez wrapped her in a thermal blanket from his trunk, called for an ambulance, and stayed right next to her until it arrived. Paramedics took her to Memorial Regional Hospital. Mild hypothermia. Cuts on the soles of both feet and both knees. Dehydrated. Heart rate too high. Not critical. But not okay. At the hospital, a nurse named Deb went through Zoe's backpack looking for ID. And in the front pocket, right next to the spot where Connor had hidden the pearl necklace, she found a small laminated card. Worn at the edges. Bent slightly at one corner. Military Dependent ID. Zoe Callum. Emergency contact, Petty Officer First Class Maya Callum. Phone number on the back. Deb dialed that number at 9:41 p.m. I was lying on the hotel bed staring at the water stain on the ceiling, counting down to Monday morning, when a local 919 number lit up my screen. This is Memorial Regional Hospital. We have your daughter, Zoe Callum. She was brought in by police about 20 minutes ago. I was in my car before the nurse finished talking. 11 minutes. I parked sideways across 2 spaces in the emergency lot and ran through the sliding doors. Room 7. Zoe in a hospital bed. For line in her left arm. Monitors going in that slow, steady rhythm. Her hair still damp. Her face pale. Her eyes closed. The hospital gown was 2 sizes too big and kept sliding off one shoulder. I sat down next to her and took her hand. I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes opened. Slow. She blinked twice like she was checking whether I was real. Mommy. Right here. Right here, Zoe. In her other hand, pressed against her palm, was a drawing. Crumpled at the edges. 2 stick figures holding hands. One small. One taller, wearing a blue uniform with buttons. She'd drawn it in the storm drain. With a stubby crayon from the bottom of her backpack. She drew me coming for her while she was sitting in the dark in the rain. If you made it to this part of the story, drop a red heart in the comments right now. For Zoe. For every kid who was invisible in a room full of adults. And subscribe to Silent Revenge if you haven't yet. It is free and it takes 2 seconds, and it means this story keeps reaching people who need it. Let's finish this. Part 11, What I Did with the Quiet. About 20 minutes after I arrived, a woman in a gray cardigan knocked on the open door. Badge on a lanyard. Clipboard under her arm. I'm Karen Shields, hospital social worker. Could we talk for a minute? I kept hold of Zoe's hand. Come in. She sat at the foot of the bed. Careful, practiced kind of calm that you get after years of doing this kind of work. I'm required by law to file a report with Child Protective Services. An unaccompanied child was admitted tonight with cold exposure injuries and no guardian on site. I understand. Relationship to the patient? Her mother. Petty Officer First Class Maya Callum, United States Navy. I just returned from a 9-month deployment to Bahrain. I handed over my military ID. My parents, Frank and Diane Callum, are her listed temporary guardians under my military family care plan. I believe my father ordered her out of the house tonight during the storm. Do you have anyone who can confirm that? Yes. Our next-door neighbor Rosa Hernandez. She witnessed it and was one of the 911 callers. There's also a young woman named Linda Park. She was inside the house at the time and saw everything. And I have 6 months of documentation from Zoe's school counselor showing a pattern of how my daughter was treated in that home. Karen wrote for a full minute without looking up. Then she said, "Is there anything else I should know?" Yes. My daughter has been treated very differently than her cousin for the entire year she's been in that house. I have phone logs, school records, and counselor notes to back that up. I started building this file months ago because I could see where things were heading. I can give you everything. Please do. After she left, I called Reyes. It's happening. The hospital filed tonight. I'm already getting in the car. I'll be in Garner by morning. I didn't go in swinging. I just answered her questions straight. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. The system is moving, Maya. Let it move. An hour and 20 minutes after I arrived, the door to room 7 opened again. My father walked in. He saw Zoe first. That small body in the hospital bed, the 4-line, the monitors, the oversized gown. Color left his face all at once. Then he saw me. I was sitting in the chair beside the bed in my navy jacket. My name stitched over the left breast pocket. I hadn't taken it off since I got the call. His hands started shaking. Both of them. Right down to the fingertips. He stared at me like he couldn't find a word for what he was looking at. You're supposed to be overseas. You're deployed. I've been back since yesterday, Dad. My mother came in right behind him. She saw Zoe and her hand flew to her mouth. Then she saw me and the tears started instantly. If you had been here, Maya, none of this would have. I trusted you to be here for her, Mom. That was my only mistake. My father tried to get his footing back. The girl took your mother's necklace. Connor saw. No, she didn't. And we are not doing this inside a hospital room. A nurse appeared in the doorway. I need visitors to please keep their voices down. I stood up slowly. Looked at both of them. You need to leave. CPS will be in touch tomorrow morning. My father went red. You called CPS on your own family? The hospital called them. Because that is the law when a 9-year-old ends up in the ER during a storm with no adult looking for her. He opened his mouth. I waited. Closed it. They left. My mother's crying echoed all the way down the hallway until the elevator doors shut. Part 12. What she told me at 1 in the morning. The hospital went quiet after midnight. I pulled my chair right up against the bed rail. Zoe woke up around 1 a.m. She blinked at me a couple of times like she was double-checking. Am I in trouble? You are never in trouble for telling the truth. Not with me. She was quiet for a little while. Then she said it in the smallest voice. Connor put the necklace in my bag, Mom. I saw him. I was on the stairs when he thought I was upstairs doing homework. I watched him go into my room with it. I watched him come back out without it. And I didn't say anything because... Because why, baby? Because Grandpa never listens when it's about Connor. He just doesn't. I've tried before. It never mattered. I smoothed the damp hair off her forehead and kept my hand there. I know. And this time the right people are going to listen. People whose whole job is to listen. You don't have to carry this anymore. Her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed out. Her hand stayed in mine, but her grip got loose the way it does when she finally feels safe enough to actually sleep. I sat in the dark for a long time after that. Then I opened my phone and wrote an email to Reyes. Subject line, full evidence package, CPS case, Callum. I attached everything. Every drawing, front and back with dates visible. 8 months of Ms. Brewer's session notes. Rosa Hernandez's contact and a write-up of her account. Linda Park's contact and what she'd told Rosa. The hospital paperwork. My family care plan documents. Every saved screenshot. Every page of the green notebook. 9 months of trusting the wrong people with my daughter. That night in that hospital chair I started trusting the right ones. Part 13. What the investigation turned up. Ms. Navarro showed up at my parents' house Monday morning at 9:15. 16 years in Child Protective Services. Kind of woman who has sat across from every version of every excuse that exists and knows exactly what each one sounds like. She interviewed Frank and Diane separately. My father's version, she was acting out badly. I told her to sit on the porch and cool down. She ran off on her own. My mother's version, Frank was upset. She went outside to get some air. I thought she'd come right back. Navarro wrote both down and then noted what anyone could see. He said he gave her an order. She said Zoe made a choice. They could not both be the truth. Then Navarro sat with Rosa Hernandez at her kitchen table. Rosa had her own notes. She'd been keeping them since November, writing down dates and times because something in her gut told her she might need them. He opened the front door, Rosa said. He shoved the backpack at her and pointed outside. She had on her pajamas. No shoes. No jacket. He said, "Get out of my house. I am done with a granddaughter who steals and lies." Then he slammed the door. I called 911 inside of a minute. Navarro wrote that in block letters and underlined it twice. Then there was Linda Park. She'd wrestled with whether to come forward for 2 days. On Sunday night, she called the CPS tip line. I was right there in the kitchen. I had a clear view of the whole hallway. I saw him open the door. I saw Zoe walk out. I saw him slam it behind her. And the rain was so bad I could hear it from inside even before the door opened. A 20-year-old tutor. A 72-year-old neighbor. 8 months of school counselor notes. My father had spent decades controlling what got said inside that house. He never stopped to think about how thin the walls were. Connor's interview was handled by Dr. Whitfield, a specialist, trained to talk to kids in a way that doesn't pressure them or put words in their mouth. Sandra, was in the room per the rules but was told not to talk. Connor, can you tell me about the necklace? I saw Zoe put it in her bag. Where were you when you saw that? In the kitchen. And Zoe was where? The hallway. Can you see the hallway from the kitchen in that house? A pause. I was in the hallway too. Were you in the kitchen or the hallway? He squeezed the little foam ball they'd given him. The living room. I saw her from the living room. 3 different spots in less than a minute. Dr. Whitfield didn't react. She just waited. Connor, sometimes kids say things because they're scared or because someone told them to. You're completely safe here. Nothing bad is going to happen to you for telling the truth. Connor looked at his mother. Sandra's face gave nothing. He looked back at the foam ball in his hands. I put it in her bag. Sandra's voice cut in hard. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's confused. Ma'am. Please let him finish. Dr. Whitfield, steady. Connor's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. Mom told me Zoe needed to learn her place. She said if Zoe got in enough trouble, Grandpa would make her leave and everything would go back to the way it was. She told me just to tell Grandpa I saw Zoe take it. She said no one would ask me any more questions after that because Grandpa never does. The room went completely quiet. Sandra's interview with Navarro lasted 40 minutes. By then Navarro had Connor's statement, Rose's testimony, Linda Park's eyewitness account, and 6 months of counselor notes on how Zoe had been treated. Mrs. Pruitt, did you tell your son to put that necklace in Zoe's backpack? Sandra's jaw tightened. That is completely ridiculous. He's 11. You're going to trust an 11-year-old over me? Navarro set her pen down and looked at Sandra without blinking. A lie told by an 11-year-old put a 9-year-old girl in the hospital. So yes, when children talk to me, I take it seriously. Sandra pushed her chair back. I'm calling a lawyer. That is your right. This case moves forward either way. Sandra left without another word. Part 14, The Table. The meeting happened Wednesday afternoon at the CPS county office. Rectangular table. Fluorescent lights. A recording device in the center. My parents sat on one side with their attorney Gerald, who had the look of a man who'd already done the math and knew his clients were behind. I sat on the other side with Reyes in her dress uniform and my manila folder open in front of me. Navarro led with her findings. Conflicting statements from Frank and Diane. Connor's recorded admission. Linda Park's account. Rosa Hernandez's documented observations. Brewer's 8 months of notes. The hospital records. My dad interrupted twice. Navarro didn't stop writing. The third time he couldn't hold it. This is a family matter. You are blowing up a whole family over one bad night and a mistake. Mr. Callum. A 9-year-old child was found in a storm drain in hypothermic condition after being put out of her home by the adults responsible for her. That is not a family matter. That is a child welfare case. My mother cried. Quiet tears running down her face. We love Zoe. We made a terrible mistake. One night, I looked at her across the table and kept my voice level. You told me if I'd been here, this wouldn't have happened. But I left because I trusted you to be here for her. That was on me. I won't make that mistake again. Reyes opened my folder. Family Care Plan Revocation filed. Sole Custody Review already with the family court. $1,300 a month, documented, receipts attached. My dad stared at the stack of paper. His face went through several things I didn't have names for. You're throwing your whole family away over this. You threw my daughter out in a storm. I'm putting a real roof over her head. I said it quiet. I didn't need volume to mean it. Navarro delivered her findings. Confirmed report of child neglect against Frank and Diane Callum. No unsupervised contact with Zoe until a full review was complete. All visits to take place at a monitored facility. 2 hours every other weekend. Social worker in the room every time. Reyes confirmed. Family care plan revoked. Guardianship back with me. Custody order to be made official in family court within 30 days. My dad stood up. His chair scraped hard. His hands were doing that shaking thing again all the way down to his fingers. He looked at the pile of paperwork on the table. Then he looked at me. He started to say my name, then stopped. Changed course. Looked at his own hands. She is my granddaughter. I know, Dad. That's exactly why this has to happen the way it is. My mother reached across the table. Her fingers barely grazed my sleeve. I moved my hand back. Gently. No anger. Just a line. Mom, I love you. But love doesn't give anyone the right to treat my child like she is less than. Gerald steered them toward the door. My dad stopped in the doorway, turned around, looked at the table one last time with all those papers on it, opened his mouth, closed it, left. Part 15, Our Home. Zoe was in the lobby with Reyes's paralegal, Sergeant Amaya, who had been reading her a picture book about a puppy who loses his favorite toy and finds something even better. Zoe heard my footsteps and looked up. She was off that chair and running before I made it 3 more steps. Her arms went around my waist. She pressed her face into my jacket and I put both arms around her and held on for a long time. "Are we going home?" she asked into my jacket. "Yes, baby. Our home. Our home." I took her hand. Her backpack hung off one shoulder. I could see the edge of the military-dependent ID card still clipped to the inside pocket, the same card I'd put there the night before Bahrain. I'd put it there because I trusted my parents to keep her safe. But when the adults all failed and the storm came, that small plastic card with my name on it was the thing that brought her back to me. Not my parents. Not my sister. A laminated card, a nurse, and a phone number on the back. We walked out into a parking lot that the rain had washed clean. First clear sky in over a week. I didn't look back at the building. I didn't need to. Vlog 3 months later. Zoe and I were living on base at Naval Station Norfolk. 2 bedrooms. She picked out lavender curtains for her room herself and spent 30 minutes at the store making sure she got exactly the right shade. She had a desk by the window where she drew every single evening after dinner. Stacks of sketchbooks. Cup of colored pencils sorted by color from light to dark. I'd been moved to a shore duty position. Logistics coordination stateside. No deployments for at least 12 months. Commander Walsh approved it without 1 second of hesitation. Family court made the custody order official in April. Sole physical and legal custody to me. My parents received supervised visits, 2 hours every other Saturday, at a monitored facility with a social worker in the room the whole time. The first visit was in May. My dad brought Zoe a sketchbook. The good kind with thick paper and a hard cover. He put it on the table between them and sat down. He didn't know what to say. She didn't either. They drew together for 45 minutes. He drew badly and she showed him how to relax his grip so the lines came out smoother. She told him about her new art class and about a hummingbird that had sat on the windowsill outside her room for almost a full minute last week. He asked her questions. He didn't hand down opinions. He didn't raise his voice. Not once. When the 2 hours ended, he stood up, picked up his jacket, and said, "I'll see you in 2 weeks, Zoe." She said, "Okay, Grandpa." He walked out to his truck and sat there in the parking lot for 11 minutes before he drove away. I know because the social worker told me. I hadn't asked. She mentioned it on her own, the way people do when they've seen something that surprised them. Sandra had not contacted me since the CPS meeting. Her husband Mark came back from a work trip and had to have the whole thing explained to him from the beginning. They put Connor in counseling as required by the case ruling. Connor sent Zoe a handwritten note in June. Small handwriting, careful. "I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't know it would go that bad. I hope you're not too mad." Zoe asked me if she had to write back. I told her it was 100% her call. She sat with it for 3 days. Then she went to her desk and wrote back in her best handwriting. "It's okay. I hope you're doing better. Counseling is actually kind of helpful. I go to Ms. Brewer and she's really nice. My mother called every Sunday evening. Short, careful conversations. How is Zoe doing, Maya?" "She's really good, Mom. Can I send her something?" "You can send it to our address." "Maya, I'll see you Saturday, Mom. Take care of yourself." My dad's hands still shook a little every time he saw Zoe at the visitation center. I don't know if it was guilt or grief or something he hadn't found a name for yet, but he showed up every other Saturday. He sat in that room for 2 full hours. He brought sketchbooks and once, a big bag of the cheddar crackers Zoe has loved since she was 4. He never raised his voice. He never called her a liar again. I don't know what the next 5 years look like for my family. I don't know if Sandra and I ever find our way back to something real. I don't know how much of my parents I can let back into our lives and when and on what terms. A lot of that is still getting written. But I know what Zoe looks like now. She laughs at breakfast. She talks, the real talking, the kind that goes sideways and loops back and doesn't have a point except that she's just happy to be saying things out loud. She has friends from her new school who come over Saturday afternoons and leave a trail of cracker wrappers and tangled earbuds behind them. She has lavender curtains she picked out herself. She has a bed that does not fold. She has a room where the light is good enough to draw by and she draws in it every single night. And she has a mother who learned, the hardest way there is, that keeping your child safe doesn't just mean making sure they have food and a roof. It means making sure the people around them are actually safe to be around. And when they're not, it means having the guts to say that is enough. Not with screaming. Not with revenge. With truth. With paperwork. With patience. With showing up when it matters most. One storm. One lie. One mom who made it home just in time. That is my story. Before you go, this is important. If you made it all the way to the end of this, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. I need you to do a few things right now. First, drop your city and what time it is where you are in the comments right now. Seriously. I want to see where this story is finding people. Are you up at midnight somewhere? Watching this on your lunch break? Tell me. I read every single one and I respond when I can. Second, if this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Put it on your page. Text it to a friend. Send it to that one person you know who is going through something quiet right now that nobody else can see. A single parent doing it alone. Someone whose gut has been telling them something is wrong. A military mom who had to make an impossible choice. This video could matter to somebody today. Third, like this video. I know it sounds small, but it is genuinely how this story gets in front of more people who need to hear it. Take 2 seconds and hit the button. And fourth, if you are not subscribed to Silent Revenge yet, do it right now. We drop real stories every single week. Stories about the moments that test you and what it looks like when you decide to fight back the right way. No screaming. No drama for drama's sake. Just real people. Real choices. Real results. You stayed for the whole thing. That means something. I'll see you in the next story.